working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. And joining me today is our EBC correspondent from Thailand. Here is Esther Odanga.
Hi, I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, giving you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. The death toll from a powerful earthquake that struck Indonesia's Sulawesi island last week rose to 90, as bodies of 6 more people were found during the search and rescue operations, according to the country's disaster agency.
Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, has received his first dose of Moderna vaccine as part of Washington, D.C.'s phase-based vaccination program.
A Thai woman is accused of insulting the royal family and was jailed for more than 43 years, according to a legal rights group, the harshest punishment ever handed out under the country's strict lèse majesté laws.
Home to flying foxes and a 70-meter stalagmite resembling a dog's paw, Ton Duong Cave is an otherworldly wonder that has reshaped the lives of the surrounding community since it opened for boutique tourism in 2013, with only 1,000 visitors can visit the cave each year.
First, the death toll from the powerful earthquake that struck Indonesia's Sulawesi island last week rose to 90 as bodies of 6 more people were found during the search and rescue operations, according to the country's disaster agency. Now, the National Disaster Management Agency reported that 79 people were killed in Mamuju Regency, 11 in Majin Regency. Meanwhile, search and rescue teams have recovered 18 more people from the rubble. The magnitude 6.2 earthquake struck 6 kilometers northeast of Majin City on Friday at a depth of 10 kilometers. A disaster emergency response status was declared in West Sulawesi province for 14 days from January 15 to 28. Meanwhile, President Joko Widodo visited Mamuju Regency on Tuesday to observe the conditions of evacuees and the evacuation process. He said the government buildings collapsed by the earthquake will be rebuilt so that public services could run back immediately. The government will also provide financial aid for damaged houses. Indonesia, a Southeast Asian archipelago of nearly 270 million, has been hit by a series of natural disasters this week, including deadly landslides, flooding, and a pair of volcanic eruptions. The country experiences frequent seismic and volcanic activity due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. On December 26, 2004, a massive 9.1 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Sumatra, triggering a tsunami that killed 220,000 throughout the region, including 170,000 in Indonesia, among the worst recorded disasters in history.
The Department of Agriculture's Bureau of Animal Industry, or DABAI, said on Tuesday the World Organization for Animal Health, or OIE, declared the Philippines is now free of the last remaining AH5N6 strain of the avian influenza as of January 8. Agriculture Secretary William Dar took this as a good news as the country grappled with the low supply of pork and pork products due to the threat of African swine fever, or ASF. The DA said the government's efforts resolved the outbreaks of AH5N6 in a commercial layer poultry farm in Pampanga and backyard poultry farms in a village in Rizal in less than a year after the poultry virus re-emerged in the country. On July 10, 2020, the DABIA Animal Disease Diagnosis in Reference Laboratory confirmed the recurrence of AH5N6 after the owner of the commercial layer farm notified Pampanga Provincial Veterinary Office about the sudden drop in egg production. Cyanosis, or dark bluish or purplish coloration of skin and mucous membranes in chickens, and mortalities. Another case was detected in Rizal as reported by a farmer on August 6, 2020 to the Municipal Veterinary Office of Taytay. The backyard farm had approximately 500 heads of free-range chicken and 300 heads of Muscovy ducks. The clinical signs such as dry neck or torticollis, cyanosis of extremities, and death were observed since August 10, 2020. Domingo noted the swift action of farmers and local government units as essential in resolving the issue.
In the Laging Handa public briefing yesterday, the Food and Drug Administration Director General, Undersecretary Dr. Rolando Enrique Domingo, against the widespread fake face masks in the country. He discussed this. He also encouraged everyone to use only face masks approved by our government to ensure the safety of transmission of COVID-19 virus variants. USEC also said that the FDA-approved face masks are medical grades and are used in hospitals. Wearing multi-layered cloth mask is allowed for everyday public use. Again, let's listen in.
Kung titignan po nyo yung mga mask na nakasama dun sa aming mga advisory, ito po yung mga mask na nagkiklaim ng medical grade sila, or meron pa po makita nyo magkiklaim ng 90 and 95 sila, or may 99% filtration rate sila. Kapag po kasi medical grade or for medical use ang mask, kailangan po yung irehistro sa FDA as a medical device at kailangan pumasa po yan sa standards na dumaan siya sa tamang testing. Yung mga mask po na mga for everyday use, hindi po yan nire-rehistro sa FDA. So yun mga yun po, hindi naman namin po yan pinakikialaman at hindi naman po natin yan sinasama sa mga advisory. Pero once it's a medical grade and medical use mask, it has to be registered. So kung meron po kayong hospital, meron kayong clinic, at required po ang mga ganito, tingnan nyo po muna yung ating mga advisory bago po kayo bumili ng hospital ng supplies para sa inyong mga facilities, dahil maaari pong hindi tested ang mga ito at hindi po sumusunod sa mga standards natin. Maaari talagang gamitin yon sa pang-araw-araw na gawain, lalo na kung hindi naman tayo healthcare worker, hindi naman tayo nag-aalaga ng may COVID. So hindi po kailangan dumaan yan sa FDA. Ang inano na natin, advice natin, dapat multi-layer yung mask, lalo na kung cloth, mga 3 layers, at lalabahan nyo po regularly. No? So for masks for everyday use, do not have to be registered with the FDA. And they are very useful at makakatulong po sa inyo yan sa araw-araw na gawain ninyo, lalo na kung multi-layered siya. Ang nire-regulate lamang po namin yung mga mask na ginagamit po sa ospital, sa mga nag-aalaga ng may sakit, at lalong-lalo na po kung yung kahon mismo o yung labeling ng mask, nakiklaim po sila na medical grade sila. At hindi naman po ito napatunayan at hindi naman po.
In other news, the Philippine ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, has received his first dose of Moderna vaccine as part of Washington, D.C.'s phase-based vaccination program. In a statement issued on Tuesday, Romualdez said the creation and deployment of safe and effective vaccines take the world a step closer to defeating the pandemic and moving forward with economic recovery. To bring this vaccine to the Philippine public, he said close collaboration with the international community between governments and private entities was a necessity. In this regard, we greatly appreciate the support of the U.S. government, the private sector, and the World Bank for the Philippines vaccination program, he said. Romualdez, one of the Philippine government officials working to procure up to 20 million doses of coronavirus disease 2019 vaccine from American pharmaceutical company Moderna, received the inoculation a few days before the inauguration of U.S. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. During the hearing of the House of Representatives Committee on Health last week, the Chief Implementer of National Policy Against COVID-19, Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., with the guidance from Romualdez, said Moderna vaccines would soon be secured and divided equally between the government and the private sector.
National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar, Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., assured that they are always negotiating for cheap but safe and effective vaccines against COVID-19. According to the Secretary, there's no corruption in the government's purchase of vaccines. As for the price of vaccines, he said the government is subject to a confidentiality data agreement. In the event of a breach of the said agreement, our country may no longer be allowed to get vaccines. Let's listen in.
Isang gusto ko pong ipaalam ng ating mamamayan na ang sinusunod po natin na alintuntunin ng ating pamahalaan sa lahat ng mga transaksyon natin dito, lalo na sa pag-angkat ng bakuna, ay ang prinsipyo ng transparency at accountability. May karapatan po ang lahat ng mamamayan na malaman ang mga detalye ng mga transaksyon na pinapatupad at pinapasukan ng pamahalaan. Sa panig po ng negosasyon sa bakuna, ipinapatupad po ng buong mundo ang policy po na tinatawag na pagpirma ng Confidential Disclosure Agreement para protektahan ang mga bagay na nakasira sa interes ng isang vaccine manufacturer at ang ating bansa. Hindi lamang po ang isang vaccine manufacturer ang ating pinirmahan ng CDA, kundi ang lahat ng ating mga kausap. At sinisigurado ko po sa inyo na hindi po tayo papasok sa pamahalaan sa kahit anong negosasyon o pipirma sa isang kontrata kung tayo po ay madedehado. We will always try to negotiate for vaccines that are safe, effective, and cost-efficient. Next slide, please. On track po ang implementasyon ng ating Philippine National Vaccine Roadmap. In fact, magkakaroon po tayo ng tinatawag nating dry run at saka inspection ng mga cold storage. Gayon din po na wala pong korupsyon sa ating negosasyon. Inuulit ko po, wala pong korupsyon. Ang presyo ng ating mga binibiling bakuna ay saklaw po ng CDA o Confidentiality Disclosure Agreement. Kaya po hindi natin po maaaring ilabas ang mga iyon sa publiko. Maaari pong mawala sa atin ang 148 million doses na ninegotiate po natin sa mga vaccine companies kapag lumabag po tayo sa ating kasunduan. Initalyo ko po ito sa mga susunod na mga slide. Tungkol naman po sa diskriminasyon ng mga vaccine, nilinaw po ng ating mga vaccine expert ang mga detalye patungkol sa safety at efficacy ng mga bakuna. Muli po, hindi po tayo gagamit ng bakuna na hindi aprobado ng ating FDA. Mapapawalang bisa ang anumang kasunduan sa mga vaccine manufacturers kapag hindi po sila nakapasa sa panuntunan upang magkaroon ng EUA o Emergency Use Authorization. Next slide, please. Gusto ko pong bigyang pakilala si Finance Undersecretary Mark Dennis Joven na katuwang ko po natin sa pagrenegosasyon sa mga vaccine manufacturers. Talaga pong mataas ang kredibilidad ni Yusek Joven dahil utos po ng ating mahal na Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte na kailangang walang bahid ng korupsyon ang ating mga vaccination program. Mahigpit po rin na nagbabantay ang ADB na may 26 countries at ang World Bank upang masiguro na malinis at maayos ang funding scheme ng ating pagbili ng bakuna. At ito pong issue po ng tinatawag ng confidentiality agreement, next slide please, nakita natin na nagkaroon din ng issue dito ang Malaysia. At sinasabi nga po sa New Straits Times na vaccine deal at stake if info revealed. Ito po, pagka binrek po natin ang non-disclosure agreement between the pharmaceutical companies and the government, ang ating pong deal ay hindi po natin masisecure at magkakaroon po ng tinatawag na cancellation of delivery. Ang NDA protection includes protecting medical trade secrets, special prices given to any particular country, the timeline of the vaccine, and any party involved in recommending or granting the deal or any other special arrangement. At pangatlo po, apart from the issues of damages and inability to obtain shipment of vaccine, there will also be an issue of credibility and reputation that may affect the government. Kaya po, kami po ay naghumihingi ng paumanhin sa ating mga publiko na irespeto po natin ang ating mga kontrata. Dahil dito po nakasalalay ang ating 148 na vaccine.
Meanwhile, Malaysia's health ministry said it will consider the need to extend the MCO or the movement control order period based on the current risk assessment. According to Star TV, the health ministry said that a wedding and 2 family gatherings are among 9 new COVID-19 clusters detected in the country. Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah said the cluster related to a wedding named the Rakut cluster has 10 confirmed COVID-19 cases so far. Dr. Noor Hisham said the total number of active clusters in the country is now up to 305. Another new cluster also linked to a family gathering was detected in Kota Tinggi, Johor. Malaysia's king declared a nationwide state of emergency on January 12 to fight a coronavirus surge, and Parliament was suspended, with critics charging it was a bid by the unstable government to cling to power. The surprise move came a day after the Prime Minister announced sweeping new curbs across much of the Southeast Asian nation, including the closure of most businesses, and warned the health systems was at breaking point. It is the first time Malaysia has declared a national state of emergency in over half a century, and Muhyiddin, in a televised address, confirmed Parliament would be suspended and elections would not take place for the time being. Malaysia has 165,371 confirmed cases with 619 deaths.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Tuloy-tuloy ang saya sa 2021 dahil hatid ng Net25 para sa inyo ang pinakabagong game show na talaga namang mapapakanta ka sa sarap. It's singing time na! Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. Dito lang yan sa Net25.
Singing time!
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. A woman is sentenced to 43 years for criticizing the Thai monarchy. Lawyers said it was the longest sentence yet for violating Thailand's harsh lèse-majesty law. To tell us more about it, we have Faye Barte, also from EBC Thailand Bureau. Hi, Faye.
Yes, good day to you, Esther, and good day to all our viewers. Yes, the criminal court has sentenced a woman to 87 years in jail for sharing clips deemed insulting to the monarchy. setting a new record for royal defamation prison terms. But since she confessed during the trial, the court have the sentence to 43 years and 6 months. Earlier, she had been detained for 3 years and 9 months during the investigation before being allowed bail in 2018. And we can remember, Esther, that 1 week ago, the Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has ordered the 4 agencies here in Thailand to boost up or speed up their probes regarding the unlawful online content. The 4 agencies are the Digital Economy and Society Ministry, the Department of Special Investigation, the Technical Crime Suppression Division, and the Foreign Affairs Ministry. And the DES Ministry, Division for Technology and Information Technology, Crime Suppression and Prevention, also submitted a number of court-approved orders regarding online lèse-majesté acts to the foreign companies which own Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and a number of websites, along with a request to suspend public access to 9,192 posts containing lèse-majesté content. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, Faye, for all your updates. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Likewise, Esther, this is Faye Barte reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
To Maldives now, where the government has opened an online portal for people to register for those who wants to get vaccinated. Joining us live from the island nation of Maldives, here's Steffi Diwan. Hello, Steph.
Good afternoon, Alma.
Good afternoon.
Yes, that's my latest news for today. The Health Emergency Operations Center on Sunday opened an online portal for people to register for COVID-19 vaccination. According to HEOC spokesperson Dr. Nazla Rafiq, the vaccine would first be administered to those on the front line, such as health professionals and social care workers, as per previously established policies. However, she said that it was too early to determine a date to commence the vaccine drive, noting that authorities were currently working to train healthcare providers on inoculation, raise public awareness, and consider all necessary factors and variables. Nazla added that HEOC was yet to decide on quarantine or virus testing exemptions for locals that return to Maldives after receiving the vaccine from abroad, as there were no global level instructions for such circumstances yet. Chair of the Technical Advisory Group on Immunization, Dr. Ahmad Faisal, highlighted that the COVID-19 vaccine was not currently available in numbers for all countries and persons of every age. Hence, he stated that authorities would first inoculate health professionals since they were at most risk of contracting the virus, followed by high-risk elderly people over the age of 50. Vaccination would focus on essential needs providers. Dr. Faisal also asserted first regarding the vaccine, noting that although it took many clinical trials across years to typically approve a vaccine, the coronavirus vaccines had been developed swiftly over the ongoing pandemic, with many lives being saved. He declared that authorities will recognize vaccines approved by the World Health Organization as those that meet standards. HEOCs acknowledged that in some cases, there would be adverse side effects to the vaccine. Dr. Nazla urged to report such cases in order for the authorities to determine whether such effects were caused by the vaccine. Although authorities are yet to announce a date, Minister of Health Ahmad Nasim previously disclosed that the government planned to commence vaccination during this ongoing January. On December 31st, 2020, the Ministry of Finance announced that they would work with AstraZeneca Singapore PTE Ltd to procure vaccines for Maldives. The vaccines quoted by AstraZeneca was developed with England's Oxford University. After passing trials, the United Kingdom's Medicine and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency approved use of the vaccine on December 30, 2020. The Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is made from a weakened version of a common cold virus known as an adenovirus, from chimpanzees. It has been modified to look more like the coronavirus, although it cannot cause illness. When the vaccine is injected into a patient, it prompts the immune system to start making antibodies and prime it to attack any coronavirus infections. Research has shown the vaccine to be safe, provoking an immune response in people of all ages, including those over the age of 55. Interim data published in November 2020 suggests 70% protection, but the researcher says the figure may be as high as 90% by tweaking the dose. The result is seen as a triumph, but follows result of up to 95% indicated by the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Maldives presently records a total of 14,513 virus cases, of which 917 are active cases, in addition to 13,540 recoveries and 49 deaths. Back to you, Alma.
Updates there, Steph. Let me know when you get vaccinated.
Yes, Alma.
Okay, take care.
Reporting live from Maldives. Yes, thank you so much. Reporting live from Maldives, this is Stephanie Juan, and we live in interesting times.
Four UNICEF schools for Rohingya children in refugee camps in Bangladesh have been destroyed in a fire, officials said Tuesday, with the UN Children's Agency calling it arson. It was unclear who might attack the schools, which were empty at the time, but the security situation in the camps housing around 1 million people has worsened in recent months. Last week, a blaze thought to have been started by a gas stove burned down hundreds of bamboo shacks in one of the camps, leaving the thousands of refugees originally from Myanmar homeless. Razwan Hayat, Bangladesh Refugee Commissioner, told AFP that he believed the latest fire started deliberately and said the schools were made of flimsy, flammable materials. However, the UNICEF said on Twitter the incident was arson and that it was working with partners to assess the damages of the attack and speed up the process of rebuilding these learning centers. UNICEF runs about 2,500 learning centers in 34 refugee camps in Bangladesh, southeastern border districts of Cox's Bazar. Some 240,000 Rohingya children studied in them before the pandemic.
In other news, Cambodia reported 2 more imported COVID-19 cases, bringing the total number of infections in the kingdom to 441, according to a health ministry statement. Xinhua news agency said the new cases were a 1-year-old Indonesian boy and a 31-year-old Cambodian woman, according to the statement. The boy is the son of an Indonesian couple who tested positive for COVID-19 after arriving in Cambodia from Indonesia via Singapore on January 12, adding that the female patient is a migrant worker returning from Thailand on January 15. Currently, the boy is undergoing treatment at the National Center for Tuberculosis and Leprosy Control in Phnom Penh, and the woman at the Banteay Menchay Provincial Referral Hospital in Banteay Menchay Province. The Southeast Asian nation has registered a total of 441 confirmed COVID-19 cases so far, with 0 deaths and 386 recoveries.
In Myanmar, volunteers have been living and working in Tuana Soccer Stadium, transformed into a field hospital on the front line against coronavirus. They help the medical staff despite the risk and the tough health conditions. Watch this.
ဒီအတွင်းမှာလုံးနေတဲ့ volunteer 60% ကပိုးထိသွားတယ်ပေါ့နော် positive ဖြစ်သွားတယ် 20% ကသူတို့ဒီ lockdown ပုံစံမျိုးဖြစ်တဲ့အခါကျ 20% ပဲရှိတယ်အဲ့အချိန်မှာတကယ်ဘယ်လိုများ ICUH မှာ volunteer တွေပေါ့နော်လိုအပ်နေဗျာကွာကျွန်တော် member မှာအများကြီးလိုအပ်နေတဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီ positive ဖြစ်တယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ကျွန်တော် level 2နဲ့ကူညီလို့ရတယ်
In Malaysia, the country has filed a complaint with the World Trade Organization over European Union rules affecting the consumption of palm oil-based biofuels, according to a document published on Tuesday. In the complaint dated January 15, Malaysia charges that the EU, and in particular its member states, France and Lithuania, had imposed restrictive measures on the use of palm oil that violate international trade agreements. The EU has embarked on a major plan committing member states to build a carbon-neutral economy by 2050, including by promoting the use of biofuels. But it has deemed that palm oil production is not sustainable and that palm oil-based biofuels cannot be counted towards EU renewable targets. Now, by doing so, the bloc and its member states confer unfair benefits to EU domestic producers of certain biofuel feedstocks, such as rapeseed oil and soy, and the biofuels produced therefrom at the expense of palm oil and oil palm crop-based biofuels from Malaysia, according to the complaint. Palm oil is a key ingredient in a wide range of products, from food to cosmetics, but it has long been controversial. Environmentalists say it drives deforestation, with huge swathes of rainforest logged in recent decades to make way for plantations. Its use in food and cosmetics has already dropped in Europe, apparently or partly due to pressure from green groups on major corporations, but has been increasing in biofuels. Malaysia is the second country to take the EU to task over palm oil use restrictions after the world's largest producer of the oil field, the oil, filed a complaint in December of 2019. Malaysia's complaint marks the 600th trade dispute brought before the WTO since the organization was created in 1995.
Academic freedom is not in any way curtailed with the termination of the almost 31-year-old Department of National Defense, or DND, and the University of the Philippines UP agreement barring military and police from entering UP campuses. UP will still be able to execute these rights even in the absence of such agreement. UP is still free to choose who may teach, what is taught, how such lessons are taught in class, as well as who may be admitted to such prestigious institution, State Solicitor Gabriel S. Villanueva said in a statement Tuesday. Reacting to criticisms on the termination of the DND-UP agreement by DND Secretary Delphine and Lorenzana on January 15, he said academic freedom is protected by the Constitution. Academic freedom is right of the school or college to decide for itself. Its aims and objectives and how best to attain them free from outside coercion or interference, save possibly when the overriding public welfare calls for some restraint, said Villanueva, who is also the spokesperson of the Office of the Solicitor General for National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. The Constitution allows merely the state's regulation and supervision of educational institutions and not the deprivation of the rights, he added. Undeniably, the school's prerogative to provide standards for its teachers and to determine whether these standards have been met in accordance with academic freedom that gives the educational institution the right to choose who should teach, he said. The termination or abrogation of the DND-UP agreement will only remove the prior notice requirement to the President, Chancellor, or Dean of the regional unit concerned before a search or arrest warrant may be served on any student, faculty or employee of UP. The 1989 agreement, which was signed on June 30, 1989, requires that prior notice be given by the Armed Forces of the Philippines, then Philippine Constabulary or the Citizen Armed Force Geographical Units intending to conduct military or police operations in any of the UP campuses to the university president, the chancellor of the constituent university, or the dean of the regional unit concerned or their respective officers in charge in the event of their absence when the situation so warrants. Exemptions to the said requirement included hot pursuit cases and ordinary transit.
Hindi kakaunting lakas ng loob ang kakailanganin ng isang anak para lamang ipahuli ang kanyang ama. Ang sobrang lakas ng loob ay hindi nakakabuti. Huling araw mo na ngayon dito sa hotel.
Ikaw. Iwan na natin ang Olvida.
Saan naman tayo pupunta?
Sa Maynila. Maghahanap ako ng trabaho doon.
Siguro naman hindi ko na kailangang ipaalala pa sa'yo kung sino ang nagpapaaral sa'yo sa mahal na university sa Maynila. Isa lang naman ang gusto kong kapalit, ang loyalty mo.
Romer, ayaw ko sanang sabihin pero...
Carly, sabihin mo na.
Ayaw na sa'yo ni Reyna. Ayaw niya na sa'yo.
Pambabastos yung ginawa mo. Ipinapakilala lamang sa'yo ni Carly ang boyfriend niya.
Akala ko ba ayaw mo kay Romer?
Ayoko siya para sa'yo dahil anak kita. Mas makakabuti sa'yo, si Ned.
Panalangin ng aking pagmamahal.
Ang daigdig ko'y ikaw. Tuwing Sabado, ika-8 ng gabi. Dito lamang sa Net 25.
Welcome back. Business and government leaders currently see the loss of life from COVID-19 and related economic effects as the world's greatest short-term threats. The World Economic Forum said on Tuesday the group, which organizes an annual get-together of leading industrial and political voices at the Swiss Alpine Resort of Davos, carries out a survey of its members beforehand to determine what they consider as the greatest global threats. Take a look.
2021 will be crucial. It will be a pivotal year for the future of humankind. It will be crucial because we have to continue to fight the virus, but we have to move out of the pandemic and we have to create sound economic growth, which is more resilient, more inclusive, and more sustainable. But what we have to do above all is to restore trust in our world. Trust is needed in order to overcome the crisis, but trust is needed as a base to have a future-oriented mind and to construct the world for tomorrow.
We know that we are all in the same boat and we have to collaborate to really make progress. Look at COVID. COVID anywhere is COVID everywhere. And to open the first day in the afternoon, we have the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres addressing the Davos Agenda Week, looking at how we can strengthen multilateralism in a world that is, of course, polarized and where we have geopolitical challenges.
Unsurprisingly, this year, the COVID-19 pandemic is at the top of the list for short-term threats. Though climate change remains among the top long-term concerns, WEF's leaders also noted that its global risks report has been warning of the threat of a pandemic since 2006, which it said highlighted the need to find more effective ways to identify and communicate risk to decision makers. The World Economic Forum itself has been disrupted by the pandemic, shifting its usual January summit in Davos to May in Singapore. Nevertheless, next week, the WEF will be holding a virtual Davos, a week of events dedicated to helping leaders choose innovative and bold solutions to stem the pandemic and drive a robust recovery over the next year.
Meanwhile, Asian investors push markets higher again Wednesday as they await the swearing-in of Joe Biden. While they have taken heart from comments by Treasury nominee Janet Yellen as she looks to push through the new president's stimulus programs. The long-running battle on trading floors between long-term recovery, hopes and concerns about the immediate virus crisis was being won by the more optimistic outlook, though the disease continues to cast a menacing shadow as several governments keep lockdowns in place. While all eyes are on Biden's inauguration, Yellen took center stage Tuesday as she was grilled by senators for her Treasury Secretary confirmation hearing. And she did not disappoint in comments flagged beforehand. Yellen said that in order to give the world's top economy the best chance for recovery, lawmakers must pass the new administration's $1.9 trillion spending package. Hong Kong rallied 0.9%, having climbed more than 3% in the previous 2 days, thanks to the surge in interest from mainland Chinese investors. Shanghai, Sydney, Seoul, Taipei, Jakarta, Bangkok, and Wellington were also well up, but Tokyo, Singapore, and Manila edged lower.
In other news, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, approved the country's bid to have its street food included on a list of intangible cultural heritage. Singapore is full of open-air food courts where vendors serve delectable and cheap dishes. Take a look.
I think it puts Singapore on the dot, puts our local food out there, that coming to Singapore, it's not just botanical gardens or UNESCO sites like that. We also have landmarks such as hawker centres where you can come and try so much different food. So definitely put Singapore out there as having something unique.
Alright, thank you. Okay.
Home to flying foxes and a 70-meter stalagmite resembling a dog's paw, Sondoong Cave is an otherworldly wonder that has reshaped the lives of surrounding community since it opened for boutique tourism in 2013. With only 1,000 visitors can visit the cave each year. Let's watch this.
Tôi thì đã từng đi khoảng hơn 30 quốc gia và tất nhiên mỗi nơi có một cái vẻ đẹp khác nhau. Khi đến với Sơn Đoòng thì đây là một cái vẻ đẹp vô cùng độc đáo. Tôi nghĩ đây là một trong cái niềm tự hào không chỉ riêng cho Quảng Bình mà đó là niềm tự hào của Việt Nam khi chúng ta có được một cái hang Sơn Đòn thật là tuyệt vời. Các cái can thiệp của con người vào trong hang còn đang rất là ít. Mọi các cái can thiệp để chỉ nhằm cái mục đích đó là tăng cái tính an toàn cho khách du lịch khi thám hiểm Sơn Đòn, và tôi nghĩ đó là đủ. Hãy để lại những cái hầu như là nguyên sơ của hang Sơn Đòn như cái giai đoạn hiện nay. Nếu chúng ta mở thêm các cái dịch vụ, nếu như chúng ta thêm các tiện nghi và tiện ích cho Sơn Đòn thì nó sẽ mất đi các cái vẻ nguyên sơ và nó sẽ phần nào ảnh hưởng đến cái vẻ đẹp gọi là rất là quyến rũ và tự nhiên của Sơn Đòn.
Do đó khi Covid xảy ra thì chúng tôi không thể đón được khách du lịch quốc tế tham gia các tour của chúng tôi, đặc biệt là tour Sơn Đòn. Do đó chúng tôi đã phải tập trung vào cái thị trường nội địa, thị trường khách trong nước để quảng bá, để thu hút khách du lịch trong nước tham gia các cái tour của Osalis, đặc biệt là tour Sơn Đòn. Mỗi năm chúng tôi chỉ đón tối đa là 1.000 khách và được tổ chức theo hình thức là mỗi tour như vậy tối đa là 10 khách tham gia tour. Và hiện nay chúng tôi thấy rằng cái việc tổ chức như vậy nó bảo được an toàn, nó vẫn giữ được cái sự hấp dẫn của Sơn Đòn, cũng như có thể bảo tồn được du khách.
Vast rock formations the size of multi-story buildings loom above Ho Min Phuc as he picks a path through the gloom inside the world's largest cave. Son Duong in central Quang Binh province was first discovered by local forager Ho Kan in 1991 when he stumbled upon an opening in a limestone cliff and heard the sound of a river deep inside. But after returning home through the thick surrounding jungle, Kan forgot where the hidden entrance lay and it stayed lost for another 2 decades. When he eventually led a team of British experts back there in 2009, the team found it had the largest cross-section of any cave anywhere on planet. It is large enough to house the 40-floor skyscrapers of an entire New York City block, according to adventure tour company Osalis, which guide visitors into caves. When Son Duong was open to tourists 4 years later, the lives of Kan and hundreds of locals changed forever. They soon became porters and guides and opened their homes to guests wanting a bed for the night. Before the coronavirus pandemic, Vietnam's tourism industry was booming, but the communist country has come under fire for failing to preserve landscapes as it rapidly expands the sector. The area has so far largely stayed clear of the mass tourism model used in other Vietnamese holiday hotspots, such as Ha Long Bay, where cruise ships have spewed sewage into pristine waters. But challenges lie ahead, UNESCO warned recently. Poaching remains among the national park's most serious threats. It said in a report that it also raised concerns over a proposal to build a cable car to nearby hang and cave. Logging has also not disappeared. 18 people were sentenced last year for cutting down trees in the national park.
And finally in our news, India's world number 13 badminton player Sai Praneeth has tested positive for coronavirus, the sport's governing body said today. Thailand is hosting 3 consecutive badminton tournaments in Bangkok, culminating in the World Tour Finals from January 27. The players have been facing off in a so-called biosecure bubble without spectators, although the first tournament last was overshadowed by 3 positive coronavirus cases. Badminton World Federation said Sai has been forced to withdraw from this week's tournament after his nasal swab taken Monday came back positive. The player has been taken to hospital for further observation and testing and is required to stay in hospital for a minimum of 10 days, according to the Federation. Sai will miss his first-round match on Wednesday against Darren Liu from Malaysia, and his hotel quarantine roommate, Kidambi Shrikant, has also been forced to withdraw from the tournament and is in self-isolation. Kidambi tested negative on Monday and has returned negative results since arriving in Thailand. The former world number 1 played on Tuesday, polishing off Thailand's 25th ranked Sittikom Thammassin 21-11, 21-11. Thank you, Esther, for joining me today here on ASEAN in Focus. I'll see you back soon.
Thanks, Alma, and that's the latest news around ASEAN. Thank you all for watching. From EBC Thailand Bureau, this is Esther Adanga. We live in interesting times.
And this is Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.